I'm David Gregory, and this is Press Pass, your all-access pass to an extra Meet the Press conversation about what is driving Washington this week, why the debates matter, inside the strategies and the defining presidential candidates. I'm joined by Jim Lehrer, of course, longtime anchor of PBS's NewsHour, as well as the moderator of 11 presidential debates. His new book is Tension City, an insider's look at major moments from those debates and personal reflections from the candidates involved. Also joining me, two veteran political strategists. Ron Klain has prepared Democratic candidates for debate since 1992, and Kevin Madden was the communications director for Mitt Romney during the 2008 presidential campaign. Welcome to all of you, and Jim, let me start here with you. What an interesting reflection on these presidential debates. Still, the ultimate job interview, are they not?
Oh, absolutely. They are probably the most important single events in a presidential campaign, probably because they come late and they're the only time the candidates really stand on the same stage or sit on the same stage at the same time and talk about the same thing, so people can see them in a comparative situation.
How have you viewed your role as the moderator of these debates? Because there is a temptation, is there not, to really press these candidates, but the point is for them to engage each other.
It is. It sounds weird, but it's not pure journalism. It's a separate function, at least the way I see it. It is also, it's for people who have already succeeded in their lines of work and are not auditioning for a better job and are not trying to get rich and famous by doing something as a moderator. I always say the first advice to a moderator is look at a mirror and just keep saying, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me, because you're a facilitator of what the candidates have to say or motion toward each other, whatever they do. You're not there to say, yell liar if somebody says something you don't like, or if you point out, oh, you didn't answer the question, that kind of stuff that you might do in another kind of environment, but not in a debate. It's up to the candidates to attack each other, to do whatever, anything like that. It's for them, not for the moderator.
It's interesting, having covered President Bush as a candidate, he was not a big fan of these debates.
He hated them.
And he says to you in the book, it wasn't clear whether you can win these debates, but you can sure lose them.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now, you're talking about George W. Bush. Yeah. Well, George H.W. Bush, I asked him, I said, you think they ought to be required? He said, heavens no. He said it ought to be a political decision made by each candidate, and if it's to the political advantage of the candidate to have a debate, do it. If not, don't do it. Sorry, he said. Sorry, debate lovers everywhere. He's the only one who thought that way, by the way.
Well, and there's, of course, the moment with him, famously in the debate, looking at his watch, which becomes this iconic moment and a huge negative for him in that particular debate. Perhaps he recognizes, I think his son did later, that these moments are what help you lose. There aren't singular moments that can help you win.
Absolutely right. Bill Clinton made a very interesting point in my interview with him about George H.W. Bush's looking at the watch, because that was in that debate with Clinton and also Ross Perot. Clinton made the point that if he had looked at his watch, exactly the same circumstance, and they had caught Clinton looking at his watch, it wouldn't have meant a thing. Looking at the watch fulfilled a premise that was already in the air about George H.W. Bush, that he was disconnected and all that sort of stuff, and he was bored and he wanted to get on with it. I asked him about that. Is that true? And he said, you bet it was true. I looked at my watch. I said, how much more time has this damn thing got to go? and he said, yeah. I said, and he said to me, and you can put that in your documentary. I was doing I was taping him, and I said, Mr. President, we just did.
How often could you tell that there were pre-planned lines versus candidates actually thinking in your presence and in the presence of their opponent?
David, that's tricky. Of all the candidates, and I talked to all of them, with 2 or 3 exceptions, there was only one who admitted, point blank, that he had one-liners ready to go for every occasion. That was Bill Clinton. And it was like talking shop, because all these guys, remember, these are the top-of-the-line political people in the world. You don't get to be president of the United States or a candidate for president or vice president of the United States without having gone through this incredible ordeal. And Ronald Reagan, the line that he used on Mondale about his age, there you go again, that he used on Carter. I said, Mr. President, you had those lines ready? Oh, no, it just came to me. Lloyd Benson's famous line
let's play that, as a matter of fact, and I want your take on it.
Senator, I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Well, I wasn't. Lloyd Benson was ill by the time I got around to doing these interviews, and so he wasn't able to answer that question to me. But he had been asked this question many times before. He said also that wasn't prepared. I just, for my own reporting purposes, talked to some of his former aides who were involved, as these guys are, in prepping candidates, and they talked in the in the debate prep that Quayle had said many times he'd used his comparison of experience with John Kennedy, and somebody said to Benson, well, you might want to say, hey, you're no Jack Kennedy.
We'll take a quick break here and be back with more of our Press Pass conversation with Jim Lehrer. Plus, political strategist Kevin Madden and Ron Klain are here to talk about debate strategy, what it takes for candidates to prepare. Back with Jim Lehrer. I want to bring in our strategist now. Ron Klain has prepared Democratic presidential candidates for debate since 1992, and Kevin Madden was communications director for Mitt Romney in the 2008 presidential cycle. Before that, he was a longtime aide to John Boehner. Welcome to both of you. Ron, you did not prepare Richard Nixon for the first ever presidential debate, but this was the moment that was captured as 70 million television viewers watched the Kennedy-Nixon debate of Nixon sweating and dabbing his face there. That was really the first introduction, and every campaign since learned the lessons of there may be upsides, but really you got to protect against the downsides. Is that how you approached preparation?
Well, I think there are certainly risks of downsides. I think there's more upside, though, than we've been talking about so far. I worked for Senator Kerry in the 2004 campaign, and he came into the first presidential debate trailing George W. Bush by 15 points on debate night. The next poll after the debate, he was 2 points ahead. It was a 17-point turnaround. It's the only time in the campaigns, particularly now that the conventions have so much less of an audience, it's the only time in the campaigns where you have 70, 80, 90 million people watching these two candidates. It's a great opportunity for both candidates.
Now, you see it that way, Kevin?
Yeah, I think what we've seen over the last few years is, you look at 1960, then they made the debate so that it was ready for TV. And more than anything, what we've seen is this sort of American idolization of politics. A lot of times, these don't really become about the substance or the issue debates, but instead, they are very much a performance. And I think, the campaigns that do very well understand that when they go through their preparation. And the campaigns that tend to falter are the ones that do not.
Let's talk about Al Gore and Bush debates and the sighing. We'll play a clip from that debate.
For example, the governor gets the scripts and gloves and Social Security for the game plan. Major problem for 900.
You put them all together, it's even more dramatic. Jim, what's interesting about that is that you didn't catch that as the moderator.
I was the closest guy to those two men, and I missed it because I have a rule that if I'm asking Kevin a question, I just look at Kevin's. I don't want to be involved in eye contact with you, Ron, to facilitate some kind of reaction.
And Ron, you have a rule which is you only watch debates on television.
That's right. I've been at every presidential debate since 1992. But I've never been in the hall during a debate. I always watch them outside on TV because that's how the American people experience them. They experience them on TV, and so to really understand how your candidate's getting across in these debates, you have to watch them on TV.
And what are we learning about these current debates in the Republican field? It seems to me that there's more of a sorting out that's going on in the course of these primary debates this cycle than I recall in the past cycle. Kevin, do you see it that way?
Well, I think what's very interesting, I think what's different from 2008 to 2012 is that during the preparation phase, you often used to look for ways that you could have a confrontation with a rival among the matrix of candidates. And now it seems like the moderators, because they're a little bit more of a cable news atmosphere, they actually tend to say, candidate A, candidate B, touch gloves and fight. I find that to be very different because you used to try to look for opportunities. Oftentimes when I would prepare Governor Romney, I'd say, okay, when the interview comes up, we want to draw a contrast with Rudy Giuliani. Nowadays, you have the moderator come up and say, Tim Pawlenty, Governor Romney, fight on health care. So I think that's a big difference.
Let me end on this if I can. Both of you take a shot at this, which is preview what we see in the fall of 2012. What's the dynamic here between President Obama and his challenger? You're advocating very strongly that it be Mitt Romney as a Republican nominee. What's the dynamic at play here in a distressed economy in the fall of 2012 with so much at stake?
Well, I would actually agree that both campaigns are probably going to understand that it's going to be a choice. Oftentimes we have this, the dynamic is it going to be a referendum on the president? Is it going to be a choice? I think that's what you're going to see, is that you're going to see two very different competing worldviews for the direction that they want to take the country. So it is going to be much more, I think, I think in order for the Obama campaign to do very well in these debates, they have to make it about what's wrong with Mitt Romney and small things. And for Governor Romney to win, he has to make it about big things and what his vision looks like for the country. So I think it will be an interesting dynamic, because they're obviously very far apart on what they think the prescriptions for the country should look like.
And it's going to be interesting, Ron, because at that stage of the game, you're going to have independent swing voters whoever's left who's still persuadable, who you're trying to reach here, who are perhaps not happy with the heading of the country. What's so important for the president at that stage?
Well, I agree with Kevin. It's going to be a choice. I don't agree with his characterization of what the choice is going to be like. I do think that President Obama will have an opportunity that you're going to need as an incumbent president in a sour time to explain to voters what you would do with the next 4 years, what you want to do to try to make the country better, and why they should give you a second term. And I think that's going to be a very special opportunity for him. He's always done well in these things, and I think he will do well in it. I don't take Governor Romney lightly. He's a good debater. I think experience counts for a lot. It's good to have been through it once before. I think it'll be a very interesting debate next fall.
Expectations game begins already.
Jim Lehrer, will you moderate another one?
No, I've made my contributions to my country as a debate moderator. I wouldn't have written that book if I was going to do it anymore.
All right. That's all for our conversation today, but you can follow the conversation all week long on our blog, presspass.msnbc.com. We'll be back next week. Stay tuned now for President Obama's weekly address right after this short break.